Cool. We've just been talking about the ups and downs of the Apple Watch. So you've caught us a great time. Guys, super excited to be running our first ever web at CharlieHR. It's been something we've talked about for months now. And it's cool to finally be here. I guess the plan is to do a bunch more going forward. So thank you to all of you out there who have been banging on the door and saying, look, we want to hear about this stuff, and we want to hear you guys talking about some of the challenges and stresses and strains that small businesses are facing on a day-to-day basis. So today we're here to talk about reviews, check-ins, how do we do that with our teams? How do we think about personal development? I think from our perspective, as we look at it, the world's changing, and I guess the team members and employees of today and tomorrow want a whole bunch more of that. We're going to be here for about 45 minutes, and we'll record this and send it out to everyone afterwards. So if you like it and it's interesting, please do send it to others and give feedback. So I'm just going to introduce who we've got with us today. We're super lucky to have two legends. One I know very well, one I know less well, but Darren, I'm sure that you and I are going to be best of friends by the end of the day, so I appreciate you giving up your time. Darren Upson, VP of Small Business Europe at Soldo, and Eamon, founder and CEO of Motivii. Thanks for joining us today, guys. I appreciate it. I know that you guys are super busy and you've got crazy schedules, so thanks for giving up your time. Cool, thanks. Darren, hey mate.
Thank you.
Do you want to give us a bit of an update in terms of where you've been at the last couple of years? What's your history? What's your experience? What is Soldo doing? What are they like as a business? Where are they going? And then we'll dive into some of the content around reviews and performance.
Sure. So I've spent the last 12 years in hypergrowth tech companies in varying stages of maturity. I was at a company called Deltek, an ERP provider. We were a business that had some great products, but actually nothing was in the cloud. NetSuite came knocking. They had products in the cloud. Yeah. I made a jump pretty quickly. Nice. To there. I was there for 4 years, and then I had an opportunity to join Xero, and I've been there for the past 3 years. Moving in March this year to a company called Soldo. We're a Series A backed startup. We're in the expense management automation space. Effectively, what we have is a multi-user account, a multi-user expense account, where businesses can distribute MasterCard cards to their employees. Users have an app that they can get instant notifications when purchases are made. They can snap their receipts, and they never have to worry about doing an expense report ever again. So it's a pretty cool solution. Works in a similar way, I guess, if you can compare. It's almost like Monzo for business.
Okay. Yeah. And maybe just quickly for look at a bunch of the businesses listening at home or at work. I assume at work. If you're at home, what are you doing? Who are your kind of like typical clients? Like what kind of size, what kind of stage?
So the beauty of our solutions, it scales really nicely. So we have customers that are sole traders. We have customers that are, tech startups. We have a lot of fintechs in our space. I can't necessarily name names, but we have a series of hot fintechs that are users of our products.
Nice.
And they scale from anything from 5 users to 250, 300 users. But we also have large corporates as well. We have certain TV shows that run on our platform as well, which is pretty cool. Yeah. So we have customers that range from 1 all the way up to 10,000 employee businesses. Sweet spot for us is really kind of that 1 to 20 space in terms of employee count, and because the price is only £7 a month per card, it's attainable for everyone.
Sure. Okay. Dream. So I guess let's get into the meat of it. And I guess what we tried to do today was think about this from maybe two polar ends, two different aspects of how we can think about reviews, check-ins with our team. And Darren, I think the direction that you're going to approach it from is maybe a bit different to what people are potentially expecting. So I guess the question I'm going to start with you is, are appraisals dead? And if they are, why do you think so?
So I think appraisals, as we knew them, are dead. I think they've changed. I think the requirements within a business have changed fundamentally. I know when I started work, there would be a once a year or potentially once every 6 months review that would take place.
Sure.
In reality, that just doesn't work. It just doesn't work in a business anymore. What I found personally from building teams is that having an always-on approach when you're constantly working in conjunction with the employees and with the people that work in your team is by far the most productive way to actually manage an appraisal process. So it also allows for a more informal environment for you to actually provide feedback to both parties. So I like getting feedback from the employees that are in my team about what I'm doing right and wrong as well as letting them know what they're doing right or wrong as well. So it's a case of it's a mutually beneficial arrangement. It also helps to neutralise issues. Sometimes if you've got kind of major problems in your business, sometimes it's difficult to see them unless you're checking in with your employees on a regular basis. Whereas if you check on if you see someone's a little bit downhearted, get around the shoulder, have a conversation with them over a coffee or whatever, and actually it's a much more genuine way to actually understand what's going on within your business.
Cool. So I guess 2 quick questions from me. I guess the first question that I would ask is, what's the feedback like? So, do your team say, look, Darren, I love the way that we do this. Do they appreciate that? And secondly, I guess that requires you to have a mindset of being heads up in terms of seeing and sensing where people are at and how they're feeling.
So, I mean, feedback from people that work in my team can sometimes be pretty blunt, but I can be pretty blunt back. So it's normally a pretty open and honest relationship I have with people.
If you're listening and you're on Darren's team, message me, message us, email us. I'd love to hear what the actual truth is, what the reality is like.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, it's about being as honest as possible. You've got to be genuine. I think the biggest problem in companies now is the fact that if you're faking it, then people that work for you are pretty, they understand that pretty quickly. And for me, if you've got good people in your team, you want to retain them. If there are issues bubbling up in the background, you want to try and resolve them as quickly as possible.
100%. And so, just on that mindset idea, do you find that you're kind of it requires some energy for you to be constantly kind of looking and sensing where the team are at?
I think you can see in body language pretty quickly. You don't necessarily need to be kind of a psychologist to understand when someone's a bit pissed off. If they're unhappy, then you try and deal with it and nip it in the bud as quickly as possible.
Okay, nice, cool. All right, let's move on. So if we're looking at a more informal way of doing reviews and check-ins, and I guess that's the route that you're preaching and championing. Why use these one-on-one check-ins at all? Why not be more consistent and I guess formulaic in your approach?
Everyone's different that works in the team. So there are some people that require hand-holding. There are some people that require more nurturing than others.
Sure.
There are some people that are really receptive and they're very open. There are some people that are more closed. Therefore, the approach you take with every one of the people in your team needs to be slightly different. Some people appreciate a regular check-in. I've had people in my team that they're looking for rapid growth in their careers. It's how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I move to the next level? How do I achieve what I want to achieve? And sometimes it's outside of just the pure role that you're actually operating with. Sometimes it's about understanding, okay, where do they see their career in 3, 4, 5 years' time, and how can you help them achieve that as well as part of the process? That to achieve that might be to actually not be within the business where they are at the moment, but actually, I want to try and nurture the talent so that they can be the best that they can possibly be.
Yeah. Do you think, I mean, just from your perspective, do you think you're seeing more people come into businesses who are super ambitious and who want to make big strides, get progression, really develop themselves?
I don't think it's really changed that much, actually. I think there are always going to be people that are super hungry. There are always going to be people that want to move faster than they actually should do. And you sometimes need to rein that enthusiasm in a little bit. You need to, ground them a little bit more and say, you're doing a great job. Let's keep on doing what you're doing. Give them a pathway through so they can see how they need to do what they need to do in order to actually meet their eventual career objectives without just kind of blowing smoke up their arse. You have to sometimes be really honest and say, you're doing a great job. If you do this, this, and this, then this will help you progress your career. and it's going to take you this amount of time to achieve that. And as long as you're honest, as long as you don't, start telling people they're amazing and they should be doing X, Y, and Z, because that ends up creating more of an issue in terms of actually setting a level of expectation that you can't actually help support. At least if you're honest with them, at least if you can actually say, this is where you're at the moment, this is where you want to get to, this is how we can help you get there, and actually just be really super honest about it, then that's probably the right approach, I think.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I guess in your career history thus far, have you seen different approaches at the companies you've been at?
Without a doubt.
Interesting.
And sometimes actually the challenge I've had is actually not trying to go outside of the formalised HR route, but sometimes we do. I have had that. So HR have effectively said, this is the process that you go through, systemised using products like SuccessFactors or Workday or tools like that, for larger businesses. But sometimes you need to be able to operate outside of that. You need to actually be able to say, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to follow the protocol, but actually outside of that, I'm actually going to manage my team. It's one of the traits of being a good manager, I think, is actually understanding what the needs of your team is and actually managing those employees in a way that's going to get the best out of them.
I'm actually just going to bring in Eamon here for an opinion. And I guess from your perspective, and you guys work with a ton of businesses, so you're interacting and discussing these issues on a daily basis with a bunch of your clients. Do you think that approach is something that businesses should be taking up, which is, do what's right for your team, rather than a top-down, this is how we're viewing this approach?
It's a good question. I think, I always advocate that you should do what's best for your team. You know your team. You talk to them week in, week out. You understand them as people. You only need to look at the number one reason that people leave the organisation. It isn't their benefits, it isn't their pay, it's the connection with their manager. I think Gallup says the number one reason, I think it's like 60-something% of the reason people leave is because their relationship with their manager. So that shows how important that is. So I think I definitely encourage managers to use common sense, have autonomy, but then at the same time, I think for big organisations, you have to have some type of framework.
Yeah.
And I think the best people in HR that we talk to, even modern HR now, who don't even have HR titles, so head of organizational design or head of people analytics, they'll say that the structure's there as a framework. And unfortunately, in some instances, especially large organizations, you need to put in a score at the end of the year to impact someone's pay review. But I think the other thing that's important, and we talked about this before, is that there's a big difference between one-on-one catch-ups, informal lunches, let's grab a coffee, or as Americans might call the water cooler moment when you chat to people, versus an appraisal, versus a review.
Yeah.
And I think what's important is trying to explain to your team what it is you're doing and when. So there's something called situational leadership. So you might be, an employee might just be thinking, oh, Darren's just being nice, and he's just offered to buy me a coffee. But actually you're trying to check up on how someone is, and it's part of your process. I think sometimes you have to put a name on it.
Yeah.
Otherwise people don't tune in to actually the conversation.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And that makes a lot of sense. And we're going to come to, I guess, your views and thoughts and feelings and general vibes about this topic in a second. Let's see if I can get the slides to work. Cool.
I think what's also interesting on that point is you've also got very different teams. So, I've led marketing teams and tech teams, so that obviously the marketing team wants to talk all the time, and they're always talking about their emotions. Actually, you have to kind of dumb it down. And, I've led a sales team, and every formal conversation is around pay rise.
Yeah.
Whereas the development team, it's a very different conversation. So you have to also frame it for the person. I think the good point you said is each person's different. So you have to, be mindful and empathetic as a manager around that.
Yeah, makes a bunch of sense. Dan, before we let you go, so how do we build and monitor ongoing development plans within an organization? So, your perspective is that keep it informal. One of maybe the downsides of an informal approach is that stuff gets missed and stuff gets lost. And there is a need for having a more rigid development plan process how do we do that in your model?
So I guess I don't think I'm not purporting to completely remove any form of structure from an appraisal process. I think it's more a case of making sure that you do both, that you have a formalised process in place, but you also make sure that you're checking in with your employees on a really regular basis as well. As far as PDPs are concerned, the main thing there is in the past, personal development plan. So, the big benefit of creating personal development plans is actually it creates a structure where it actually says, this is what I am going to do as an employee. The employee then owns that activity. You then work with the employee to make sure that they're achieving or they're meeting the requirements associated with PDP, so that actually they can see how they're progressing over a period of time. What I've always done in the past is try to create a personal development plan with quarterly intervals associated with it, so that you actually say, okay, here are the milestones that we're trying to meet in the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and 12 months, and then it becomes, you put it into bite-sized pieces. But one of the problems that I've seen in the past is sometimes when you talk about PDP, there's an expectation from some employees that actually the manager is going to own the PDP. Okay, the challenge with that is the personal development. So if you're, I've been in situations where I've had 15 direct reports, and you cannot manage 15 PDPs. It just doesn't work. But actually, if you're the employee and you own the PDP, and actually that becomes almost the tool that if you're having a monthly check-in, that you're using as a reference point to discuss where you're at a given period of time. How am I tracking against these objectives? Are these objectives I've got in there still the right objectives? Does this tie back to the company goals or the department goals? Actually, then it becomes a really, really good tool to actually drive the conversation in the direction it needs to go. Because it's not all just about the individual and what they're seeking to achieve, it's how does that map across to the business objectives as well.
Yeah, I know, I really like that. And actually, just from our own perspective at CharlieHR, a lot of our personal development plans, or action plans as we call them, are owned by the team member, and yeah, that's been super effective. Okay, cool. Darren, thank you. We're going to move on. We're going to jump to Eamon now. What an amazing photo. So
it's happy, isn't it?
It is happy. There's a lot of joy in those eyes, which I think is much like you today. Guys, you can't see. We don't have cameras. We will have cameras soon. We'll find some budget for that. Eamon's got his new Apple Watch on, so he is beaming. Quickly, out of 10, how many marks are you giving it now?
Oh, it's got at least a 9.
At least a 9.
Yeah.
That's a really strong review.
Game changer.
This has not been sponsored by Apple, just to be really clear.
Yes.
We've not taken any money from Apple to run this webinar today. So Motivii and Eamon.
Yeah.
Talk to us about Eamon. Talk to us a bit about Motivii. Who are you? What are you guys doing?
So I describe myself as a sales and marketeer at heart. And I've had the pleasure of working for some big companies like Experian and AOL, and going through the formal corporate kind of process and training development and all the good stuff, but then also things like 90-question annual surveys and some of the challenging stuff as well. But also got to work with a number of startups, founded a couple of startups, invested in a couple of startups, mentor a couple, and I think that the common theme across all of that is working with people, working with teams, trying to build stuff. And I think building stuff and working with people comes with its good stuff and comes with its challenges. And Motivii was born out of me as a manager and seeing other managers wanting to be good managers. And on a good day, you are a good manager, but sometimes when you're stacked in meetings and you've got 101 things to do, sometimes you miss things. And sometimes it's hard to remember, have I had a catch up with this person, or am I supporting this person in this way? And the idea of Motivii was, how can we help automate some of the regular things that you might do, some of the maintenance things you might do as a manager, and as a system, it does that for you. So it allows your employees to manage themselves better. It allows you as a manager to get the feedback you need quicker. The topic that we're talking about today, one-to-one reviews, is kind of very much, a pet project, I suppose.
Super nice. Like I said at the beginning, we're trying to look at, I guess, both sides of the coin, and I guess 2 different ways of thinking about this. And Eamon, I guess the title of your first slide is "Structure is your friend." So how do you view that, and why do you think structure is so important to this process?
Yeah, so I think maybe a better word than structure is expectation. I think, as an employee, you want to know what's expected of you, what you need to do when. And I kind of think that you need to make time in the employee life cycle or an annual view of an employee to do certain things. You need to have your one-to-ones, weekly check-ins, and that's more around kind of what's happening day to day. But then you also need to have your development conversations, and there needs to be some rough markers around the format and when those things should happen. I think sometimes, when I talk to some people in startup world or small businesses, they go, "We don't want to be a corporate, we don't want structure." Yet at the same time, when you talk to those businesses and when you analyse those businesses, and we talk to lots of them, people say, "Well, I don't have enough support in my development. I don't know where I'm going." And it's a chicken and egg. I really, really like what Darren was saying and what you were saying, Ben, in terms of employees need to take their own responsibility with this. But at the same time, you need to give them the framework that they need to operate in. So this is what a PDP is. This is what you need to think about. Now you fill it in. Now you follow that. Yep. And then we're going to talk about this in 3 months' time. I also think it's worth being clear with employees, I think again, sometimes what gets muddy in this is a review conversation is about also salary conversation. And I think the two should actually be completely separate.
Okay, interesting.
Because otherwise what happens is, you want to have, I think the best review is a development conversation where you're saying, where do you want to go? And how can we as a business help you on that journey? And as long as the two things are aligned, then everything's fine. But there's points where it doesn't get aligned, and actually, as a business, you should encourage the employee to do something else or think something else. But to, I think, have a creative conversation, which is what a development conversation is, mixed then with, am I doing good? Are you going to pay me more money? Is left brain, right brain conflict. And I think I would much rather have this is how we do pay reviews. This is, each year, you get a standard X, or if this happens, you get a Y. And it's been really clear with everyone, that's how this works. So then there's no ambiguity. You don't have an employee. I think what's really important, again, with structure is you don't have one employee saying, well, those people get that process, I don't, I get something else, and again, it creates conflict. So for me, it's simple structure, and ideally there should be a one-pager in the organisation. It says this is how we do one-to-ones. One-to-ones are about agile management, week on week, it's about tasks. Reviews are about development conversation. Pay reviews happen in this way, and then what happens is you don't get mission creep. So you don't end up having a one-to-one,
and then becomes something else.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. And it makes your life easier as a manager. I think there's lots of talk about it's hard being an employee. It is. It really is. It's hard being a manager. It really is. The extra pressure that comes from that. I think sometimes, it's about how can you relieve pressure for both the employee and manager. Actually, how can you help the employee manage more so the manager doesn't have to? If I need to manage less, I can coach more. Which is what I want to do.
Darren and I are both sitting there nodding our heads, going, it is hard. A lot of that really resonates.
I think we need to talk about this more. I think we need to talk about it's great recently. There's a lot more talk about mental health. I love some of the stuff that Sanctus are doing, for example.
Shout out to Sanctus.
Big shout out. But also at the same time, there's not a lot of talk about the extra pressure a manager's under. That first time manager, you talk to people, they're shitting themselves. And so many people have no training, and they'll be made the manager because they're the highest performer. And they might not even want to manage anyone.
And I think that, Darren, jump in if you disagree, but I think the pressure on managers and leaders within organizations now is greater. I think there is, teams are coming in and going, cool, it's not just about salary anymore. It's about where am I going, what am I doing, all that stuff that we kind of discussed at the beginning. And so, as a manager, there's a more pressure on, God, I've got to deliver for these team. I've got to deliver for these individuals that I'm sitting in front of.
Especially if you're in a hyper-growth business.
Yeah.
If you're in a business that's expecting to be in a transformative state, you're expected to, you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders as a manager.
Yeah.
But I think it can change. So it's great, I think, to see millennials say, right, there's no more of this hierarchy. I remember when I joined Experian as a 21-year-old, and like everyone was in suits, and you see the really senior people, and you're like, oh, I can't talk to them, and yes, sir, okay, fill in my PDB, and all of that. Whereas now you talk to people, and we've got an amazing 18-year-old developer, and he's like, this is what I think we should do with the business, and this is where we should go. I'm like, that's great. But actually, management starts not when you become a manager. It's when you just an employee.
Yeah, 100%.
And if you stay as an employee, hey, this is how you should manage yourself.
Yeah, this is your responsibility.
Correct.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
This is how and a good employee should say, I've thought about all these things. And then when you become a manager, actually, you shouldn't become a manager because you're already a manager. Yeah. You should become a coach.
Yeah. People talk about we're a business of leaders. It's not just about being a few people at the top, and I think that resonates. We'll move on to the next slide, and you made an interesting point here, which is about seems like there's two types of conversations. Yeah. And Darren, at the beginning, you were talking about the importance of those kind of in the moment. Right, this person over there is in a bad mood, or I can see there's a challenge. Need to go and support them. Completely resonates with me, 100%. I think if one of the team looks like they're in a bad headspace, we should be like, hey, is there anything I can do? So there is these short and long-term discussions that need to be had. How do you balance that?
So we obviously balance it with Motivii because it's got a built-in one-on-one catch-up mechanism. So at the end of each week, we encourage an employee to take a moment out to type in their highlights of the week, their challenges, and what they want to achieve the following week. And we encourage people to do this on a Friday while it's still fresh. Yeah. And there's something very cleansing about getting it out of your system at the end of the week. And then it's like, go away for the weekend, recharge the batteries, come back in Monday morning. And Monday morning, we circulate that information around to not just the manager, but the team if they want to see it as well. So that supports your weekly almost conversations. So people kind of talk about, not just, it's fascinating to see, not just about the work stuff that's going good or bad, but also their personal stuff comes in there.
Yeah.
I think around that then, as a manager, you're then going like, do I need to then give additional support? But it's being clear around that, that topic is about a certain thing. And I think it's great to watch engineers doing daily stand-ups because they're very regimented. As soon as they go off and talk about an idea, it's like, no, this isn't time for this meeting, it's time for something else. I don't think you should be that regimented, but it's just kind of getting into that flow. So there's lots of conversations that are happening around these short-term and long-term aims, but it's really getting people to make sure they do both. I think it's essential.
Yeah, I think you're right. You've got to tick both off. Your final point, which we'll come to in a second, which I think is super interesting, is around like what we as managers should be doing and as leaders should be doing to get the most out of these conversations. We're investing a ton of time into our teams. We are doing everything that we can to ensure that they're really benefiting from those conversations. And so, yeah, I mean, what should we be doing to make sure that we ourselves are really extracting as much value from the time that we spend? So if you're spending 2 hours a week with your team, or 3 hours a week, or a week, how can you ensure that those are the most high quality 10 hours that you can extract?
So I think to make sure it's high quality, I think prep is important.
Sure.
One of my pet hates and one of the reasons we created Motivii is too many teams will do their weekly one-to-one and people just dive in and shoot from the hip. Or you do a 6-monthly development conversation and both of you are trying to remember what's happened and you're like, you can only remember the last month. So, one of the things we do with Motivii is by recording a little bit each week, then that builds up over time into a perspective. But I think that over time journey is also important with the employee and the manager relationship. Now, it's very unlikely that you've got a brand new person who reports into you and you can dive straight in and say, hey Ben, hey Darren, tell me emotionally how you're feeling and what do you want to achieve in life? That's just not going to happen. It's going to take you a while to get there. I think the way you start off is actually your company values. So, you know, one of our values is bring your whole self to work.
Yeah.
And what that's about is, I think a development conversation is a conversation not just about work. It's about you as a person, about where you want to go, what you want to achieve. And I think the best managers are able to incorporate that. And, you know, one of the questions I'll say to people, which is kind of counterintuitive, is, you know, what does it look like when you leave? People kind of go, what do you mean? Like we're encouraged to don't talk about leaving.
Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it?
It is. Don't talk about leaving. I'm like,
yeah.
You should talk. You know, what do I do next? And I've found in some conversations that some people say, you know what? Ultimately, I want to be a property developer. I'm like, okay, cool. So actually, how can we build that into performance development plan? Because my view is, you know, if someone, you know, it's amazing and really gratifying as a manager when someone leaves for the right reason.
Oh, 100%. And we need to get comfortable with that.
Correct.
And
it's okay.
Yeah.
It's not. If someone says, you know, say for example, you know, what's your role at Charlie? Your CEO.
COO.
COO. So say I'm reporting to you.
Sure.
And I'm smashing it for the last couple of years. And my next progression is COO. But you're going nowhere.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Ben, it's time to move on. You know, and you go, awesome. I'm moving on, not because I hate Charlie, because I'm not happy with the benefits. I'm moving on because it's the right time. You know, the baby bird's ready to fly the coop.
Yeah.
And we should encourage that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think what's really important here is if you have a good one-to-one regular catch-up, when you come into the review conversation, there should be no surprises.
Yeah.
You know, if you're catching up regularly and someone then turns around and say, yeah, the review, I've been hating it for the last 6 months. It's like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
Some pennies drop. So I think the two, if anyone wants to, who's listening, wants to go and look at some stuff that's really interesting, I think there's 2 models which I really like. One is situational leadership.
Yep.
And that's all about how you manage employees based on the task or where they are in their development, not as a single person. Really fascinating stuff. The other one, and you touched with Darren, is you need to be authentic and honest.
Yeah.
And the best stuff I've seen there is stuff, I think her name's Kim something, around
Kim Scott.
Around radical candor.
Yeah.
Radical candor's awesome.
Yeah.
And the key thing there is that there's a quadrant, and it's basically the you know, Venn diagram. The top one is you care greatly.
Yeah.
And then the top right is you give like really candid feedback. So the opposite of caring greatly is not caring, and the opposite of candid feedback is lies.
Yeah.
And you want to be obviously with all these diagrams. The top right is the way you always want to be. And if you're there, you know, I can give you really radical, candid feedback, and it's okay because you know it's genuine and it's not there to hurt, and you can build from that. Whereas if you do, I think the bottom right, you're just a bastard at work.
Yeah.
If you do top left, you're insincere, you give people false praise and hope, and actually think something different.
Which is super dangerous, right? And
massively.
And it you know, Darren, I feel like it's difficult to have those hard conversations. It's sometimes difficult to be honest. Like, you know, it requires some effort.
It does. But it also requires you to sometimes, you know, you have to substantiate. You have to have evidence to support what you're saying as well. So, you know, you can't just have a one-on-one and then suddenly bring up, well, this is a problem, that's a problem, this is a problem, that's a problem, just for the sake of it. You know, you can't go thermonuclear when you're being super nice for every other catch-up you've ever had. You have to be consistent in your approach, and it has to build based on certain key events.
Yeah.
So by tracking performance, I mean, one of the other things that I've certainly seen implemented in businesses I've worked in before is the introduction of OKRs, so objectives and key responsibilities for employees as well, following some of the leadership from like Google and organisations like that. And actually that can work quite well, because actually at an employee level, you can set a department level set of OKRs, and then you can set OKRs for the actual team members as well. And by doing that, you understand, okay, this is, as a person, this is my objective, and these are my key responsibilities. And at department level, you can see exactly the same thing as well, and build that into some of the planning activity that's taking place as well. But you know, it's difficult to have it's you know, having a hard conversation with someone is not a nice thing to do as a manager or to take as an employee.
But I feel, I mean, my view always is the thing I'm most worried about is someone, they leave Charlie, they go work in another business, And a year on, they give me a call and they say, Ben, I've just been fired. And I've been fired because apparently I'm really aggressive in meetings. And they say to me, did I do that at Charlie? And I have to say to them, well, yeah, you did. And at that point, they're like, why did you never tell me that? So it's hard, yeah, but it's definitely our responsibility to be honest and open.
I want to buy with two things there also. I think, again, putting this pressure on managers, I think as leaders, I think it's good to think about, do we have a culture of radical candor? Do you have a culture of bringing your whole self to work? So,
and honesty and vulnerability and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And that way it gives everyone permission to engage with that, opposed to put the pressure on a single manager to be a sole advocate for that. I think the other thing I just want to kind of counter to what you're saying around OKRs is I think some businesses obsess too much about the metric.
I agree.
And I know it's not what you're saying, but not about the person. And I've had people who are smashing it on sales numbers or doing really well on their OKR, but they're miserable. And they don't want to stay in the company. And I would actually advocate, how can you understand, how can you create more EQ, so emotional intelligence with your team? And if you understand how people are and where they want to go, and you focus on that, the OKRs will just be hit.
Yeah.
It's just an output. Yeah. It's not an input.
Yeah. Okay, nice. So look, we said 45 minutes. You can clearly tell that there is a lot of passion in the room when it comes to this subject, which is great. I feel like the three of us could just debate and discuss this for hours. We're not going to do that. We're going to stick to 45 minutes. And we'll use the last 10 minutes. We're going to show you a bit about the product and do a couple of questions. So wouldn't it be lovely if someone had built a piece of software that allowed you to stay on track with your reviews and catch-ups? And funnily enough, we've done that, which is great news for everyone who's on this call. We've launched a brand new performance review aspect of the product. If you're sitting in front of Charlie right now, I'm sure you've all got it open on your browser, because that's the kind of mega super fans that we have on this webinar with us today. I'd urge you now just to go and click on that tab, and on the left-hand column you're going to see reviews. It's about halfway down. Give that a click and have a little play around. The reason that we built this feature is, for us, I guess as a business, we've used Google Docs and a mixture of my notebooks and calendars to stay on track of the reviews and check-ins that we're meant to be having with our team. And I guess one of the biggest downsides of that is two things. One, stuff definitely got missed. So that works when you're a small business and maybe there's 10 people and it's just the CEO or one of the founders having those conversations. But when you're 20 and 30 and you're growing, and you need to make sure that your CTO is having those conversations or your head of sales is having those conversations, for me as a founder, I want to be able to look somewhere and see, yes, all of those conversations are happening, and be able to dig into those notes and understand how the business is feeling and what's going on. So we built something that's pretty simple. As with anything that we build, we've really tried to focus on making it a joy to use, making it a great experience, not just for you guys, be it the HR manager or the office manager or someone running ops and people in the business, but also for the team members. I think that's something we try to do every time we build a feature, is make sure that the real end users, i.e. our entire teams, are enjoying it. So I'm going to show you a real quick demo now. I promise you it will be like 30 seconds. Really, this is not the meat of the conversation, but nice to show you guys and give you a bit of a view. So you're looking at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, long-time CharlieHR users, which is great. Rob, our CEO, is actually a very good friend of Dumbledore's. I think they went to prep school together. And what you're looking at now is the setup page. So there's 4 areas here: setup, participants, form, and confirm. So on this first page here, what you're going to do is name the review type. So this could be a probation review. This could be like a monthly check-in. It could be a 6-monthly performance review. It could be a 3-monthly performance review. It could even be one of those weekly informal check-ins we've talked about. What we can do is put the review name in here, plus the specification of when we want it to happen and how often we need it to repeat. So Is it going to happen every 2 months, every week? We then select the participants. So is it everyone on this team with this particular reviewer? Is it the entire business? Is it just new members of staff that need to have a probation review? So you go in and select those participants, and then you could create a form. So what this is a number of questions, which you can have the person that you're about to have that conversation with answer in advance. So Eamon, quite rightly, quite intelligently, because he is an intelligent man, despite all the chat you've heard from him over the last 15 minutes, suggested that it's good for team members to do prep before these conversations, right? So what we're showing you right now on the screen is a bunch of questions which you can pre-populate into the review, so that when it's time for a review to happen, the reviewee, the team member, has the opportunity to go and answer those questions in advance, do that prep, do that thinking. So the one we're looking at right now, actually, if I scroll up, is you can see Albus Dumbledore's face, and you can also see Professor McGonagall's face. And you're thinking, I assume that this is Albus reviewing the professor. Actually, it's not. Hogwarts are really keen on that 360 feedback. Darren talked about it before, which was it's really important that feedback is coming not just kind of top down, but also bottom up, right? Everyone in the team is talking to us about, you know, the type of job that we're doing, and it's good to see that Hogwarts are practicing that. So the professor is actually doing a review with Albus here, and you can see his responses, and you can also see her responses. So the professor said Albus is great at picking up new tasks and pitching in whenever he's needed. I admire his adaptability and ability to get stuck in. So good. And I guess the feedback that I would have for her is maybe you could be a bit more candid. That doesn't feel like radical candor to me. And then down the bottom here, you've got the ability to throw in a summary. So how did the review go? How did the conversation go? What were your notes? What were your thoughts? And then when it's done, you get to complete it. And I guess what that means is it's there. It's on that individual's profile. Albus can go back and look at it. The professor can as well. In a month, in a year, and I guess in line with what we've been talking about, that's to me the real important thing, is being able to track ourselves over a period of time. How are we doing? What did we say we were going to do 3 months ago? Have we done that now? And look, hopefully this feature allows a bunch of the businesses that we support out there to do that better. Guys, if you've got any questions about how to use it, do get in contact. Just email our help team at help@charliehr.com. But before we go, we got 4 minutes. We're going to just take a few questions, and we emailed a bunch of you in advance, and we've got a long list of questions, and we've whittled it down to a few. So I'm going to start with Darren. What are your tips on putting together a personal development plan? So we're small businesses, all of us, and a bunch of people at home and at work listening are going to be in the same situation. We're always short on time. What are your tips on what the right format, what the right questions, what the kind of templates should be for those plans?
I mean, the main one is keep it really, really simple. If you try and overcomplicate it, make it a 10-page dossier, no one's ever actually going to use it. So keep it really simple. Start off with a one-pager, break it into certain chunks. Leave it so you're focused on from a personal perspective. So you can break it into 3 areas in terms of from personal development side of things, from a career side of things. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? And actually, what are the challenges you're currently facing to get there? They're the 3 kind of key areas I would focus on initially when looking at PDP. Keep it really simple. Get the employee to fill that out based on after a conversation that you have with them, and then review it, and then make sure that you're putting some notes in there as well and tracking performance against those metrics. Set timescales as well. Make sure that you're setting timescales on tasks or activities set within that as well. But don't try and overcomplicate. Start small and build it up over time. Even in a bigger business, PDP should not be an absolute beast. If you turn it into the Encyclopedia Britannica, no one's actually going to look at it. Yeah. So make it really simple to understand, one page where possible, and something where you can glance at it, check to make sure it's up to date, understand what the key milestones are, mark them in there, job done.
Nice. Okay, and I bet there's a bunch of people at home sitting there going, cool, that's great if we've got really engaged and enthused and ambitious employees, but we all know that that's not always the case. Apart from the CharlieHR team, you guys are amazing. Massive shout out.
A good way to introduce it is if you are going to do a regular one-on-one session, make it part of the key output from that initial one-on-one session. Make that the thing that needs to be completed. If actually it makes sense, if you've got someone who's not massively engaged and actually, that isn't particularly proactive, sit down with them and help them fill it out in that one-on-one session. At least start the process, and then it's the ball's in their court.
Yeah, bingo. And Eamon, so what do we do if you've said to someone, hey, where do you want to get to? Where do you want to go? And they're like, I don't know. What do you do in that scenario? If they don't know what they want the world to look like in 5 years from a career development perspective.
I think the thing, and this goes back to maybe a bit of manager pressure, is some managers, especially new managers, think that they need to, they worry about talking to employees because they worry that they need to think of the answer. They need to have the answer. What if I don't have the answer? And it's not about having the answer as a manager. I think it's about asking the question. So if someone says, if you say, for example, Ben, I don't know what I want to do in the future, I would try and ask you another question. I'm like, why is that? Or what do you enjoy? Or I try and tease it out of you. But I think there's a difference between someone who hasn't gone through this process before and who isn't used to, reflecting, think about what they want to do next and in the future, versus someone who's not motivated and someone who's disenfranchised. Mm-hmm. They're two very different things. We can see with Motivii when people start off in the first couple of weeks, people only put 1 or 2 highlights in, but then by month 2, they're normally putting in 4 or 5.
Yeah.
So it's like Pavlov's dog. I've been trained to now reflect and think. But if someone's not motivated and they're disenfranchised, I think it's saying, ask them why. Yeah. Are you enjoying it here? And again, to what we were saying before, if it transpires that the person isn't. So I had, one of our marketing managers, a lady a couple of years ago, we were doing a catch up, and I was just saying to her, I won't say her name, I say, I just kind of feel that you're not really engaged with what we're doing at Motivii. But when we have conversations in the office, and when they're political conversations or they're things about charity and supporting people, you get animated. I'm like, should you be doing something around that? If I say to you tomorrow, you come into Motivii and you do your marketing stuff, versus tomorrow you come into Amnesty International or wherever, what would get you more excited? And she chose the latter. And I was like, it's okay. It's okay to leave. I'm giving you permission. It's okay. I'm not formally giving you permission, but you have to allow that conversation to go that way. But again, I think some of it comes back to the values of the company. When you recruit people, you say that we're all about bringing your whole self to work. We're all about a culture of radical candor. And then if the person turns around after that, once you give them the job and say, I don't like that, then maybe they don't fit the culture. So it's okay to have these conversations. It's about, trying to uncover what's there. The conversation doesn't make a new reality.
No.
It's already there.
Yeah, it's about having...
It's uncovering it.
It's about having that honest conversation and actually getting to the nub of where that individual is. Great, guys, thanks so much. So we're going to wrap up. We're about 2 minutes over. So everyone that's listening, I all owe you 2 minutes of time. So do email me. I'll come and clean your car very quickly, or do something wacky like that. We're going to do a bunch more of these, and the team are going to be working on new topics over the next couple of weeks. So if there's a particular issue or topic you'd love us to cover, do email. Our email's up on the screen now. I'm going to say a massive thank you to Eamon and Darren, 2 legends, also both from great businesses, Motivii and Soldo, companies we're massively proud to know and have a relationship with. Do go check them out. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. Appreciate that 45 minutes is a big amount of time to give up in your day. So thanks to all of you that have sat and listened to us drone on. I hope it wasn't boring. I hope we were interesting and have given you some ideas to think about. And we'll be back soon. Cheers.